Hey guys, my name is Liam and you're watching Jeep Sheep TV review stuff. We've got a large box that we are going to review today, and in this box is a winch. This model here is the OPENROAD, which I don't know if they're a newer company. I hadn't heard of them before, but they reached out to me and they sent me a winch. Their newsletter is actually pretty decent when it comes to off-road content, so food for thought there. There's just one problem. I've never owned a winch before. So I've reached out to my colleagues at Gone Jeepin' who have tons of experience, and they're gonna fill us in on all the things to look for when purchasing or reviewing a winch. When you're buying a winch, like what attributes of the winch are you looking for? Is there anything that stands out to you as like good versus bad?
It's got to exceed the pound rating that I'm trying to put on it. So I'm going to apply that to the type of wheeling I'm doing. I like to time and a half, sometimes double on my weight. I also really like simple. I'm not a fan of the Bluetooth and remote wireless stuff. It all fails. And the winch is a tool. When you need it, you just need it, and you need it to be simple. Then you get into lengths, and if you have a less than adequate winch, then you need to have more rope so you can run more advantageous systems. So there's a lot to it.
The very first time I ever bought a winch, in fact, I still own it 20 years later. I compared line speed. I compared the strength of the different line speeds with how many wraps were on the drum. I compared all of those. I knew that I was looking for a winch in the 8,500 to 9,500 pound range because of the weight of the vehicle and because reading magazines like JP and stuff like that, they told you that's what you needed. I actually looked at all the name brands, the big name brands of the time, which was like Mile Marker and Warn and Super Winch. And the one that I finally landed on was the Super Winch Talon because it had exceptional line speed. All of the numbers were as good as all the rest, if not better than some of the rest. And in the end, the reason I chose it, the price point was better than the same size Warn of the time.
The takeaway here is that like the devil's in the data. Behind your computer screen, that's all you have, unless you've used one. And then brand name matters because some brands are going to have more attention to quality.
Brand name and the quality go together. I generally buy brand names, and there's a small handful of them run that I've never had a failure.
I'm of the same opinion. There's probably two, maybe three brands that I would trust implicitly. None of them are Chinesium. Winches are a tool, and they're a buy once, cry once tool, in my opinion.
See, and I'm of the notion brand name does not matter. And the reason that I say that is in my history in the off-road industry, even some of the biggest names out there, and I forget what year it was, 2012 or 2013, somewhere around there, we would buy pallets of winches every month because of the amount of vehicles we were doing. And every single vehicle, we spooled the winch under load, right? We did what you're supposed to do for our customers. And for about, I think it was 5 or 6 months, we had a 70% failure rate right out of the box. It's just because at that particular point in time, they had switched manufacturing facilities and, there's always an excuse, but it can happen to the best of the best. Luckily, they were, it's a big company, they're phenomenal. So as soon as we knew we had a problem, they replaced them, no questions asked, it was all good. And that's another reason to go with a good name, or one of the reasons to go with a good name. But even the best in the business can have an issue. Mm-hmm. So do your due diligence. Once you've picked it, make sure you run it through all its paces and test it appropriately and spool it under load like you're supposed to make sure you don't have a problem. And this isn't after you purchase a winch, but after you purchase it, make sure you use it and learn all about it and follow the instructions to do everything you're supposed to, so that when you do need it, it functions.
Your recommendation is whatever information they've posted out there, check it and compare it to other brands, and you should be able to get a pretty good feel for what you want based on those numbers.
Honestly, wouldn't even look at price. I would look at the posted capabilities of the unit before I would look at the price points. Also, look at some of the other things. Is it, because there's winches that are not waterproof. And then the most important thing, once you actually pick the winch that you want and you buy it, follow their instructions for mounting. A winch is something that can hurt you and hurt other people. It has to be installed properly. So if you're looking at lots of different winches, even look at stuff like that. Look at the mounting hardware. Look at how it's mounted. Now, I've been sent winches from companies before and everything looks good. All the line speeds, all the stuff on paper looks great. And then they're putting a grade 3 bolt in the hardware. And I know the shear strength of the grade 3 bolt is way less than what that winch is capable of pulling. Even after you buy a winch, make sure you double check your hardware before you just go bolting it on.
I was going to say, some of them are 3/8, some of them are half. 4 halves, is that right, Tyler? Am I remembering that right?
Four halves.
No, 4 bolts.
4 bolts
Half.
that are 1/2 inch. Yeah, and you'd want grade 8 hardware on a winch.
This winch is to be mounted on to Jeeps and other vehicles, or you can put it on a trailer, or I mean anything that you need to use a winch for. Yeah, this one here is rated for 13,000 pounds, and that, in my opinion, is a pretty darn big winch. So we're going to figure out today if A, it's any good, if it can actually pull stuff, if it can be installed on a Jeep, and first of all, what's inside the box. So let's get to that right now. First thing you get greeted with is just a little tie-on, put on your hook. So this is a hook. It looks like it's a cast metal hook. There you go. There's your little flag hanging off of there. So that's that hook. The other thing you get greeted with is instructions right here. You can take a quick look at that instruction manual, and it's got all sorts of stuff. I'm actually opening this for the first time, so bear with me as I look it over and tell you nothing about it. But it has various specs on the motor. It has pictures and descriptions of all of the stuff you're getting in the box. We will go through all of that, talks about the hardware, etc. With that, you get, actually there's a lovely sticker. And you get a little card, which is just more go to our website type stuff. Also on the top of the box, by the way, if you can't see it, because you probably can't see it, the top of the box looks like this. This is what the top of the box looks like. All right, also in there is some wire, cable. This looks like your ground cable. It looks like that. It seems to be kind of long. That is good. Some mounting hardware. It does say grade 8 on it. Some of these seem to have like a stainless, or like a nickel coating, and others seem to have this dull silver coating here, which it's hard to tell just looking at it. That could be a really good coating. I don't really know. There's some that look like that are good, and there's others that are not. I'm always concerned about rust. Okay. Woo! Inside the box, they give us a hat. They give us a hat. How cool is that? They gave me a hat. Okay, hold on, we're doing this again. This is what it looks like now. Oh no. Inside the box, oh, check this out. You get wireless remotes, plural. There's 2 of them. I don't know why I need 2 of them, but there's 2 of them. So that's kind of fun. And there's a button thingy. Nice ergonomic grip in and out. So out being left, in being to the right, out, in, not too bad, decent form. A little bit large for my hand, and I have probably average size hands. It's not what this video is about. Anyway, just a little bit large, but good for a gloved hand, I suppose. Yep. Get a fair lead. So your power wire is wrapped up here and already attached to the winch. So bear with me here as we struggle to get the heavy part out of the box. Struggle. Yeah. Look at that. 13,000 pounds, supposedly. Honestly, it's actually not that big for that rating. So I guess we're gonna find out. But not being huge is cool because you'll see in a minute where I want to locate this, it's gonna be difficult even in this size. So it's got a like a clutch over here to engage and disengage. Or maybe disengage is like this. I don't know, we'll find out. Here you go, there's that synthetic line. I don't know how long it is, but we'll put that on the screen as well, the length of the line, because that's important. This control box, relay box up top here, it's kind of bouncy, just a little weird, but it's cantilevered out on this metal plate here, and there's another hole. So you can actually move it over, which actually I might have to do when I'm doing this, and that's a kind of a nice option to have. This is what the back of the winch looks like. You got gables right here. So what goes in to the relay box and what comes out. And here's your power. I'm assuming ground is, I mean, I know ground is this, but maybe we have to attach it ourselves. We'll find out on the install. Yay. All right, let's see the length of these cables. See what they gave us. So here's that ground cable. Yep, it's about that long. And the power, it's about that long, about the same length. So you never know. Probably this is plenty, but anywho. And there's that. Hey! So this is clutch out. And you can kind of unravel. It's got a nice protective-y portion here on the first bit. And it unspools pretty easily. So that's good. That is good. Now, respooling it. Oh, I made a mistake. Respooling it requires power. Yeah, that makes sense.
The most important thing I would say is look at the numbers.
So let's start with the specs. The first thing that jumps out to me is it's a 6 horsepower motor and that the gear reduction is 265 to 1. We're also getting a 3/8 line. That's the rope. It says right here, automatic load holding brake. That brake is pretty cool. Now I've actually gone through the process of selecting various winches and comparing them for you. So this first comparison, we are sorted by gear ratio here. We have the Warn Xenon Super Winch SX12SR, another Warn and Evo, OPENROAD Panther, Mile Marker, and the Rescue, which is a Quadratech, and of course I spelled that wrong. Like Greg said in our interview, we are not looking at the price right now because what's more important is how the winch performs. And so you can see that the lowest gear ratio is the Warn Xenon. That's actually one of their top of the line winches. And then the lowest being the Mile Marker and the Rescue have the same at 294. Our OPENROAD right here is about the middle of the pack with 265, if not towards the high end. And that's not a bad thing, not at all. If we take this and we start sorting it by the amp draw, the Warn Xenon again is at the top with 469 amps at 12,000 pounds. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something to take into account when sizing your alternator and picking your battery. Then at the bottom of the pack is our Mile Marker at a whopping 340. That's actually really good. And then our Rescue, it doesn't have any information, but you can see here that it has similar horsepower. So the motor is 4.7 on the Mile Marker, 4.9 on the Rescue, and they have the same gear ratio. So we might be able to make the assumption that it's going to draw about the same amperage and probably have similar line speed. And you can see here also that the line speeds are really comparable, with the Warn being some of the slowest, but the rest being in that 4 feet per minute range. Again, our OPENROAD Actually, no, it's not in the middle of the pack anymore. It's a little bit closer to the top with the 415 amps, so it does draw just a little bit more power. And for some better perspective, because you're probably pulling closer to the 6,000 pound range, we're looking at 230 amps with 212 at that mile marker and 272 on the Warn. And that just should give you a better idea for how you might want to size your alternator. Lastly, we are going to look at the price. This is where it becomes very interesting because our OPENROAD right here is actually the lowest price of them all. So we saw that it was in the middle of the pack on some of the other comparisons, and now it's right at the top with $479, and it does come with all those lovely accessories. That's the thing we're not talking about here is accessories and doodads, wireless remotes, lights, whatever, you name it. There's a lot of good things that these companies are doing, but most importantly is can it recover your vehicle, and that's what this is telling us here. So the Rescue, the Quadratec brand, comes in second at just under $800. Then there's Super Winch at just over $800, the Warn Evo at $1,100, mile marker at about $1,300, and then their Xenon is just under $2,000. Now, there's winches cheaper and more expensive than these, but this is kind of what I selected for what I would be shopping for if I was considering the OPENROAD winch and some of the other brands. So Greg, I've got two Jeeps right now. I have a Commando and I have a Wrangler YJ, but the Commando, I've looked at it and I think I can fit the winch under the hood, behind the grill, in front of the radiator, and I'm just gonna run the winch line out like through the grill, so I'll probably have to cut a hole about that big in the grill.
Well, first and foremost, I would say, they make winch plates that go on top of the frame for the YJ. So it's very, very simple. They're very inexpensive. So that would be the easy thing. The cool thing, however, is the Commando. Most people don't even know they exist. It's got a pretty iconic grill. It bummed me out a little bit if you cut a hole in the grill because they're very hard to come by. If you ask a fabricator, that thing's got a beautiful, like those old bumpers are beautiful. I would cut a little tiny slot in the bumper and figure out how to run the winch line through there. When people see you cut a chunk out of your grill, right? That's the easy way out. When people see that you fabricated stuff and cut and slotted and did all this cool stuff so that it passed through, I think the hours invested in it would give you an end look that you would be very proud of and that other people would appreciate.
When you're right, you're right. You may have just cost me a heck of a lot more time on the install. Hey, this is a good spot to be in because the winch is in place. So, let's go to this. There you go. So this guy here, I'm running in through the bumper like that. Now the instructions are kind of lacking in this department in terms of the actual installation of the winch. So let me show you. Well, this one's already got, so does that one. These must be for the back. But you can see right here, right right there, that's it's one of these guys. Okay, square nut. So you put it in, it holds its orientation. You go underneath. These are not the ones they give you. That one. You got this guy. They also give you a lock washer and a washer. Kind of a thin washer, but whatever. All right. And so that's all going to go in there. And they don't give us a torque spec, which drives me absolutely nuts. So this is an M10, 8.8. The internet says the torque spec on that type of bolt is going to be anywhere from 55 to 60 Newton meters. So you'll use your torque wrench. Now, the reason why you're going to want to do that, and don't come suing me because I gave you the wrong torque spec, because torque specs actually matter differently based on what you got going on here. So like I've got this 1/4 inch plate on the fronts. I'm going through 1/4 inch, and then another 1/4 inch down here. On the backs, I'm going through just the 1/4 inch plate. So the torque specs are technically slightly different in those scenarios, which is probably why they don't give you one, but they should at least give you a ballpark, because then they're all going to be torqued down to the same amount, and then you have some kind of control over, you know, the fact that they're being tightened. Like you watch the video that OPENROAD provides, and the guy uses like a small ratchet to install his winch, and you know, maybe you need more than that. Maybe you can't even hit the torque with one of those. So any kind of indication would be helpful. I would appreciate that a little bit more, but I'm going to put these in. They give you a lock washer. I'm going to choose Loctite as well because the bolts are inverted, and then if they were to fall out, you know, they gone, and then this guy's free to move. Versus like my bolts here, if they were to loosen or the nuts were to fall off on the bottom, the bolt's still in and it's still keeping everything in the same spot. So that's why I'm going to put Loctite on these. So I ground down all these edges to be all nice and smooth, and we got some self-etching primer in there. And then we're gonna try, this is chrome, we're gonna try a chrome spray can. Hey, I don't think that turned out too bad at all. And there you go. That is sweet. I don't care what anyone says. I like it a lot. Slide some loom over here, protect it from the sharp edges of the metal. Let's take a look in here. So I'm coming in, and then I've got kind of a little power bank here where I separate everything out. Nice little cover, it covers it, you know. And so we're coming in through here. And then we got my relay box, and the ground I have fastened directly to the battery. And then the power, I could do directly to the power, to the battery as well, but I went over there because you'll see I've got 2 posts. This is actually set up for a fuse. The idea here is if you're nervous about overloading your system, you can fuse it, and then you can kind of set what amperage that blows out. And if you need the extra power, then you can flop it back over to the way I got it now, and just run it directly to the battery. But here I could swap it from here over to there, run a fuse between the two, and then I could fuse the winch. So that's why we're doing it that way. Oh man, this is looking really great.
I think the hours invested in it would give you an end look that you would be very proud of and that other people would appreciate.
All right, I need you to get real stuck, okay? All right, Brent, what'd you do?
Well, we got our ambulance good and proper stuck. Check this out, we got the dually tires back here, bearing up halfway on the rim.
Okay, so now we've got the winch installed on the Commando, and it's a 13,000 pound rated winch. And I don't have anything that's that heavy. This Commando's nowhere close to that. So we've got that thing which is an ambulance, and we got it nice and stuck in the dirt over there. How much does that thing weigh?
Around 10,000 pounds.
Pretty good test. The grill of the Commando is off here so you guys can see the winch working. Yeah. The further out you go with the line, the more pulling power you have. And it's just a simple lever arm equation. So it rolls real big, you got a bigger lever arm on the motor. So the more you pull out on the line, the more pulling force you got. So we got a big heavy ambulance, we want a nice long line. And you gotta worry about safety too, just make sure everyone's nice and clear. We're down to like one wrap on the winch. That's pretty decent, I think. I don't really know. But I like where it's at here. Now, we need to reel in some because we ended up with too much rope. So we got these 2 wireless remotes. A good test of these remotes is to be able to go, well, about, you know, as far as we are now, away from the vehicle and be able to still operate the winch. So let's see if it works. All right, it works at least this far away. We'll do a test in a minute but further away. We're gonna take this remote and go further away, see what our limits are. Well, this is really far away, much farther than the winch line, so I think we're in good shape.
Okay.
All right, we got some good news. So we were trying to pull the ambulance and the Commando started moving instead. That means that whatever the weight of the Commando is skidding across the ground, the test is set up to be more than that. Just what I wanted. If I'm just pulling the Commando, it's not a good test of the winch. So come around over here. We ran out of property, so we had to change our location. And now we're attached to this poor little tree right here. And maybe not the best way, but this is what we got here. And this is going to support the Commando while we pull the ambulance out. We're pulling it out backwards now because we ran out of land. Let's see what happens. All right, ambulance is in neutral, still stuck in the rut. You can kind of see it here. We got coveralls covering the line just in case we have a catastrophe, and then of course the Jeep. Let's do it. Getting slower, getting faster. And the ambulance is rolling away free.
Check out this massive hole we dug. That wasn't coming out of there without some assistance.
We're out of power, guys.
Maxed out.
I'm gonna try and rev up a little bit, see if I can get a little bit higher. Run away! It got easier.
Yeah. You don't want to shut it off?
Nah. Yeah, you're right. We're on the hitch now.
Watch out your bumper.
Yeah, I'm watching. Everyone stand back. I can just play this in reverse and it'll look like it's going really fast. So this here is what we call a limit use case. This is testing your equipment or you sit on the button. You sit on the button. This is testing your equipment to the absolute limit. So this is my fair lead here and my bumper, and I smoothed them as much as I can, but we still frayed. Look at that. Yeah, we frayed some of the rope. I think my bumper held out. My welds are good. All right, let's check this thing here. So this is the remote that you use when you don't want to use the wireless remotes, and you hold it in your hand and just in and out. Well, anyway, the concern that I have with this one is the length of the cord. The length of the cord needs to reach back to the cab, because this is for when you are the driver, are winching, or sometimes you can be standing out to the side of the vehicle, but I've seen it a lot of times. People will use these when they have to drive and winch at the same time. So down here on the side of the winch, this little doohickey goes in just like that, and then we'll see if it reaches back to the driver compartment. We'll close the hood. And we'll run this guy up, around, and into the window. So when you're sitting here, it's gonna have to be your left hand, but it does seem to work. It is long enough. It might not be long enough for some of your bigger vehicles. You know, keep in mind, the hood on this is pretty long, and I'm doing something kind of weird under the grille here, so this is probably an adequate length. Very responsive. There's a slight delay on the wireless guys. This is a lot more responsive. There you go. I will say that I really like these remotes. They turn on really quick, just like that. Turn off real quick. I believe I noticed that it turned off by itself, so it has a timeout, so it doesn't drain its battery. And it's just really easy to use. They have a slight delay, but like not more than you'd expect, and the range is phenomenal. Very happy. Glad that we got 2 of them. The only thing that happened to me on this was one of the buttons got stuck under the plastic, and then it just kept winching, and you just kind of wiggle the button and you're good to go. But yeah, these are great. Very cool.
Well guys, we unboxed the winch, we talked about the winch, we installed the winch, and we tested the winch. And the question we all want the answer to is the winch any good? And I think that the OPENROAD winch has a lot of good to offer. It came in at the lowest price point while being roughly in the middle of the pack of all of the comparative winches that I picked from the market. In testing the winch, I was able to pull an ambulance out of the dirt. And then we also went and tried to climb a tree with the winch, and we did all of that in the same day. It did get kind of low, the battery did, as we were winching up the tree.
We're out of power, guys.
But applying a little bit more throttle, a little bit more RPM of the engine, solved that issue, and we were able to continue winching up the tree, which we did twice, by the way, because we're filming. Also, as I was winching up the tree, at one point I got to an angle where I had to turn the engine off, and the winch was able to continue climbing the tree. So there's a good testament to the amp draw and probably to my battery. Now I am running what I think is a stock alternator and a junkyard battery, so I'm really not touting any fancy charging system at all. And the fact that we were able to pretty much do winching activities all morning, I believe is impressive. Another good thing is that OPENROAD includes the hard cable winch controller. I had a lot of fun with the wireless, but as Clifton said, it's a system that's bound to fail at some point. And so it's important to have a wired option, and they provided that for us. Another thing that stood out to me as being really good is the brake on the winch. So when I winched it up the tree and then I stopped winching, the Jeep stayed in place, which means that the brake is working and working pretty well, because we filmed and we walked around and I pulsed the winch up and down a couple times while doing a couple takes of the video, and it held solid and it never moved. That to me is really good. Safety is paramount. I'm still not gonna walk under a vehicle when it's like that, but you know what? The fact that it didn't move was really great. So the good is that the price point is awesome. The good is also that they give you a lot of accessories to go with the winch, and really you can just out of the box get started. Now, what would be the bad? The bad would be the fair lead. When I winched up the tree That was at an extreme 90-degree angle, and the fair leads started to fray the rope. Yes, I know my bumper modification also started to fray the rope, but the fair lead did as well, and the fair lead should not do that. You can get away from this by using a roller fair lead, and if you look at any of the other higher end winches on the market, you'll notice that their fair leads have a much larger radius, and that's something I would recommend if you're going to be winching at extreme angles. Additionally, the wireless remote, the button did stick on me, which was an easy fix, but it did happen and it freaked me out. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Another thing that's not necessarily bad, but it could be, is I just don't know the history of OPENROAD as a company. Greg mentioned that one of the companies he worked with had a 70% failure of their winches despite their great reputation. And instead of telling him to just go pound sand, they did make it right. So not knowing the background of OPENROAD, I don't know which end of the spectrum their customer service falls on. I'm hoping for their sake that they have great customer service, because at the end of the day, everyone has issues with manufacturing, and just doing the right thing can really keep a lot of customers. Through the process of making this video, it seems apparent to me that if all winches were the same design, the one thing that can kill them is heat. So if I wanted to do a really good shootout video, what I would need is multiple winches doing the same test and compare the thermal characteristics of the winches. Which one gets the hottest? Do they degrade as they get hotter? What is the amp draw? Those are the kinds of tests that we would really need to do to prove these out. So if you're watching this and you work for a winch company or you own a winch company and you want to send me one to test out, once I get a couple of them, we'll do just that. We can do a shootout where we check the thermal characteristics of the winches, assuming the construction of the winch is similar between them. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope we can do something like this again. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I hope you learned a lot. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the trail.